See, now here's the thing about our friendship too, because we're both like deep thinking people, like you teased earlier about overthinking or whatever,
Yeah.
where there are my friends that would laugh at this conversation because I thought this is a good lesson in how you were trained to react to things. Okay.
Mm,
My first reaction, authentically having nothing to do with you. Like when I thought of you, it was benefit of the doubt. I hope she's okay. She's probably just asleep or something's up with her son, and she'll tell me when she gets a chance to talk to me, because currently my son has the flu. So, and we had the emergency room visit, and I thought, if something like that's going on, then I
yeah,
certainly don't expect me to be a priority.
right.
But there's a part of me that is the bruised, damaged part of me, because we all have this. I don't know. As I'm getting older, it's like I look at humans as what tunnel that did they have to burrow through in
Mm,
childhood to get out, and what's left over, right?
wow. Yeah.
And so for me, it's because we none of us came to this world with any damage, and but for me, it's being forgotten, being left out, being because I
Wow.
was the oops baby, I was the youngest. There's situations in my life where I was kind of overlooked
Mhm,
and or ignored, or
mhm,
just I wasn't, what I was doing was not a priority.
mhm.
And so that was the first emotional reaction that kicked in when I got ghosted. And I remember thinking, you know, that's when I consciously had to think about you, right? So instead of it being, oh, great, I mean, here we go again, somebody's, I'm not the
Forgotten about me.
priority.
Yeah.
Somebody's
Yeah.
forgotten about me. Somebody doesn't care. They've got better things to do. And then in my mind, I had to physically say, all right, well, let's think about Pam.
Yes.
This is now, this is Pam, So it was interesting for me because in that moment, I thought, wow, I can't believe I'm still at 52 years old, still having this reaction that anything that triggers me not being first
Yeah.
makes me feel left out. And that's such an extreme thing to do. But it
Mhm.
was like, okay, well, this is something that I think all these moments when things don't go your way, so to speak, because that's kind of what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's the, okay, well, look at how you react. And then how you react is how you've been trained to react to things. And either you keep it or you try to diffuse it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it was interesting I guess as I get older, I'm more apt to do all that stuff because I have a young son. So I think there's a part of me that's inspired to, I don't know if it's overanalyzing, but at least being aware of my behavior so that I don't pass it on to my son, or at least give him information about himself
Yeah.
if he reacts to things he doesn't like. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, that's how we evolve, right? The first half of life is developing the survival techniques and mechanisms to get you through to adulthood.
mm-hmm,
And then the second half of life is breaking those survival mechanisms down and then realizing that you can choose them or not choose them.
right.
Like that's the whole thing. So it's the same thing for me this morning. This trigger was, oh my God, it's happened again, right? Everybody else knows something and I don't know why I don't know it. I don't know why I forgot
Right.
it. Like what
And notice how I laugh.
because you're we
It's very serious for you. I'm laughing because I'm like, how ridiculous is that? But for you, it's a very real thing. And I'm
right
sure
and
people would look at me
standing.
like, what do you mean you're left out? What do you mean people don't care about you? But in my mind, for
Yeah,
some reason, I have
that's
that
the
trigger.
emotional.
I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're exactly right. That's the emotional trigger. So standing in the bathroom with the phone like this, knowing like being so discombobulated, I couldn't afford myself the imperfect, like absolute forgiveness. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. It was this glaring, obvious thing of, oh my God, she knows I'm not perfect. What do I do now? And it was like frozen. And in my head, the logical part of me is like, it's Melissa, we're good. Like you and I
Right.
have this standing thing anyway every week. And so it's not like I forgot. It's I don't it's that my brain was full and needed a break and my body was like, you're breaking now. You're gonna take this break. But I
Well,
couldn't
yeah.
give that to myself. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I
So
mean, no, I think this is an important conversation because, in my household, with my son just turned 8, and he knows what bad words are, right? We know, because we've told him about words he hears us say and said, well, that's not for school and you shouldn't say that. But I keep telling him, look, when you're an adult, you can decide how you want to talk. Like,
Mhm.
I want to give him an out where, okay, eventually you can say these words when you're an
Yeah.
adult. That's up to you. And I said, but you can't say them at school. So I don't want you to say them at home and get in the habit. So I
Yes.
try, that's my thing with him is I just try to make it not a big deal, but let's make
Yeah.
sure we don't say it at school. But one of the words on that list is perfect. And he makes fun of me all the time for that. He argues with me about it, which I'm happy that he argues with. He doesn't argue about any of the other words, but he wants to be able to say perfect. And I said, there's no such thing. And that's why I think it's a bad word, because nobody should be made to feel they have to be. And so, yeah. So so when you said that, I think that's what it all is for all of us, is that, there's something to us that for some reason, we feel like our lovability is conditional. Like,
Yeah.
we buy into conditional love and we don't trust unconditional love for
Right.
some reason.
Right.
And it shows how it's even on the, it even on the smallest of levels, like us doing a podcast.
Right.
It comes because I had this, okay, well, you know what? Something's more important than me. What, before I made it personal. So same with you. Here
Yeah.
I go again until you made it personal. Like, okay, wait a second. In this moment, that doesn't apply. But for
Right.
some reason, I
And honestly, that's why I called you in that moment. I was not ready, and I am not a talk on the phone person. Somebody calls me and I panic. I'm like, no, 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 I don't know what word. I have to think it through. I have to plan it. And if it had been any other time in my life, I would have just texted, oh my God, I slept in. I'll call you in 20 minutes. And then
mm-hmm.
I would have used that 20 minutes to prepare what I was going to say,
Right.
to think through and analyze.
To reestablish your perfectness.
Yes, that's exactly right. To prepare for making sure in front of my friends they see me as perfect and reliable and good, quote unquote good. I have to be
Right.
good. So it was a risk, it was a vulnerability for me to call you in that moment and just be like, whoops, I don't I just was like that part, to be able to do that with you, A, says a lot about you
Well,
and
I
our
appreciate
friendship.
that trust and
For
vulnerability.
sure. Yeah. But B, I'm like, oh, now I might dream about it, because now my learning mind, my unconscious is like, oh, that was a spike in our emotions. Where have we felt that exact spike before? Oh, back in high school. So it just won't surprise me if in the coming weeks, like
Mm-hmm.
somehow one of my flagline people shows up, or something about marching band or something about whatever,
Or that
because
other
it's been
captain.
triggered from
That
this.
other captain's going to be there with judgmental eyes.
Yes, or a car wash, or what, for whatever reason it's going to throw these things in, so that I can go like, okay, now let's normalize that particular spike in emotions and learn from it and move on. So it's
I
I'm
love that
just glad that
conversation.
you are who you are. I'm glad that you and I have like developed this.
Damaged goods is what
Um,
I am, but I talked myself through it. That's what I mean, because
so,
it's so funny. I just had a conversation with my son's grandmother because he's sick at the, time we're doing this. And she was talking about in her profession that she had just had a project and it just was completed, and that somebody had criticized how she did it. And so she had 3 or 4 other people call her to tell her about this one person who'd criticized her performance. And she was in a downward spiral. And it was so funny how, again, I could recognize in her, and I kept saying, well, just ignore it, or it's not a big deal, or, but you could see that she was already knee deep in whatever it had triggered in her. So we see it in other people. It's hard to see it in
yep,
ourselves, but
yep,
she was absolutely completely thrown, upset because of the gossip. Obviously, it triggers some kind of gossip or talking about her behind her back or something that she didn't recognize what it was triggering. She thought all her emotions had to do with this very moment.
yep,
At least where we're talking, we recognize that what we were feeling was from back here. That
yeah,
was, and so
right.
maybe, when you talk about dreaming about it, I never thought about the fact that sometimes can your dreams, I don't know, can they show you what these consistent triggers are. You know what I'm saying? Or do
Yeah. 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 So, even Jesus speaks in parables, and parables are, they're morals, but they're also very pointed and specific examples of emotional behavior.
mm-hmm.
So, um, so
Well,
one of the
I think of
one of the
Nostradamus
things,
too. Even non-religious,
yeah,
Nostradamus, his predictions had to be more parable like because or not even parable but more coding because of
yeah,
dangers, but still they're very generic that fit whatever your interpretation you want in it.
yes. And so one of the things that is quoted in the Bible that Jesus is quoted saying is something about, why are you paying attention to the speck in your brother's eye and not noticing the log in your own eye? And after doing dream work, I was able to see that particular quote as like, oh, it's psychology. It's the psychology of the unconscious mind. I
Mm-hmm.
can look with my logical mind and help you make sense of, like, oh, just let it go. Logically, this is not a big deal. Logically, your reaction is a bigger wave of emotion than this particular instance calls for.
Mm-hmm.
So just have a smaller reaction. It's okay, right?
Right.
That's the speck in your brother's eye, whatever. But when we go into triggered behavior, we're unconscious to it.
Yeah.
We don't notice that we are overreacting. It feels like an appropriate reaction to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got this huge wave of emotion. We actually go unconscious and we think we're right. We become indignant and we operate from that place of non-centeredness. So this other voice takes over and we're like hurt. We're a hurt child all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And we react to something. So no, hush. That's the garbage truck. I just see the look of barking right now on his face. Like he wants to.
I must protect the realm.
He's triggered. Okay, so what the dreaming mind does, the dreaming mind is like takes our ego out of the equation and makes everybody equal. Like all of my reactions are equal. And so if I have felt more indignant that day, even though I don't recognize that I was behaving inappropriately or immaturely or whatever, then my dream is going to convey that indignancy or whatever the word is. My dream is going to like normalize that emotion for me so that I can start to recognize, but it's the unconscious showing the conscious mind. That's what the dreams do. It's the unconscious showing the conscious mind, like, here's what's really been going on. You've been missing in action during the day, by the way, because you weren't present.
Mm-hmm.
So the dreams can help us start to see, and start to be consciously feeling that thing so that we can start to recognize right before we go unconscious.
Well, I mean, if we use our dreams, right, we need to be able to use our dreams.